Good morning. Welcome to my show. Today I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about the soul, which is natural. Okay. What is the soul? What the soul is, we have set forth fully elsewhere, but a fresh study from another standpoint may be helpful. Soul is physical sensation, not spiritual life, for which it is usually mistaken. A soulish man likes the pleasures produced by eating and drinking and all other agreeable and delightful sensations, rather than the intangible experiences of the spirit. These do not appeal to him, but the mere fact of having a soul does not imply the lack of spirituality. Man has both a spirit and a soul. That is, he has life and sensation, yet the body is strongly inclined to follow its feelings. It is soulish at present, but the tyranny of the soul is a temporary condition due to man's mortality. Had Adam been created immortal so that he could not die, the life-giving spirit would have been so dominated his actions that he would have not have sinned. This will it be with all mankind when they are vivified. It is the sensual man, to quote the authorized version, or one who is soulish, who does not receive the things of God's Spirit. How many times has this passage been hurled around against me to prove the patient exploration of systematic study of the Scriptures, being the methods of a natural man, will never enable me to apprehend God's Word. I thank God for the testimony that I am not unnatural. It is often very difficult to go against nature or instinct, for it is largely subconscious, but the soul should be well under control. If we allow physical pleasure to dominate our life, then we are soulish and in no state to receive spiritual revelations. Now, for the positive proof, we beg our readers to carefully consider the following passages, all in which the word psuchikos, nature, occurs. The quotations are usually too short to give the full context. It will help if the reader will turn to each passage and weigh the context carefully. In such a study, it has been laid down that success lies largely in seizing a key passage, one which is as literal as possible, one which clearly exhibits the particular point to be determined. For this, we recommend an exhaustive study on the usage of this term in the early chapters of Romans. The first two occurrences, we contend, completely contradict the current theological conception of human nature. We feel very keenly that it is impossible to continue using the term in its usually accepted sense, as sinful nature, without causing endless confusion, and humbly supplicate our readers, especially those who write and speak, to probe the problem thoroughly. Okay, so I'm going to give you a bunch of occurrences of this word, psuchikos, nature, in the authorized version. Romans chapter 1, verse 26, into that which is against nature. Romans chapter 2, verse 14, do by nature the things contained in the law. And 27, uncircumcision which is by nature. And chapter 11, verse 21, for if God spared not the natural branches, and 24, out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and wert grafted contrary to nature, into shall these, which be the natural branches. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14, doth not even nature itself teach you? Galatians chapter 2, verse 15, we who are Jews by nature. Chapter 4, verse 8, which by nature are no gods. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 3, and were by nature the children of wrath. James chapter 3 verse 7, every kind of beast and of birds and hath been tamed of mankind. 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 4, ye might be partakers of divine nature. Not only is nature allied with law, but it accords with conscience. This is important. A bad conscience is really a good one. Conscience may be conscience may be stifled or scared or go unheeded, but it never sides with sin. However callous a conscience may become, what is still sensitive is against sin. A conscience may be weak, but the little strength left to it will not stand with sin. But it is not necessary to labor this point, for I know of none who attribute sin to this faculty. Even those who insist on total depravity would make an exception here. So also they should do in regard to human nature. For conscience seconds only with what it is instinctive to humanity. The fact that nature is in line with law is confirmed in Romans chapter 2 verse 27, and that was quoted above. The Jew had received the law and was admitted to that exclusive class called circumcision. He certainly should have fulfilled the law which was given to him, yet he transgressed. They will be judged by the uncircumcision who had no law, other than the instinct or nature common to all humanity. It was this that enabled some to discharge the law's demands and maintain its just requirements in some measure. A sinful nature would be utterly impotent before the law. Instinct is more potent in this regard than exhortation. It is easier to subconsciously fall in line with the divine law than to yield a voluntary and intelligent obedience. In the 11th chapter of Romans, we have evidence of peculiar value as to the significance of the word nature and natural. It shows clearly that it is by no means the opposite of spiritual. To be sure, the natural boughs which were not spared, verse 21, were unbelievers, yet those which will be grafted in again will be believers. It is most unnatural to graft a wild scion into a cultivated tree. Even this was not a sin in the spiritual sphere. How much further removed from lawlessness will be the grafting in of the natural boughs back into their olive tree. A remarkable passage now claims attention. Paul actually appeals to the teaching of nature to support divine revelation. This would be unthinkable if nature were sinful. Instinct teaches us that there is a difference between the sexes, and this should be maintained in outward appearance. What is the glory of one is the dishonor of another. Our present point does not depend on the interpretation of the passage. Okay, my wife is home. Just give me 1 second. All this is necessary to see if Paul's approval of teaching of nature or instinct. Such language is utterly out of line with present-day presentations, in which natural is never appealed to for confirmation of truth. The fact that nature called for a covering would probably be a good argument against the custom of these degenerate days. Okay, I'm going to end there. My wife just drove in the door, so I'm going to end there today. So grace and peace, folks. We will see you tomorrow.